You can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's Andrew Pearce, consulting editor at the Daily Mail, and Danny Kelly, broadcaster and motoring expert. But before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. At least 35 people have been killed and 134 wounded in a Russian airstrike on a large Ukrainian military base near Poland in what appears to be the most westerly attack so far. The regional governor says more than 30 missiles were fired at the facility, which is located less than 15 miles from the Polish border. The base is the site of joint drills with NATO, and foreign military instructors have previously worked there, but it's not known if any were present at the time of the attack. An American journalist has been shot and killed in the Ukrainian town of Irpin near Kiev. Another journalist has also reportedly been wounded after Russian soldiers opened fire on their vehicle. In a statement, local police had initially said Brent Renault worked for the New York Times. However, the newspaper says he had worked with them over the years but was not currently on assignment. The Times called Mr. Renault a talented filmmaker. The Pope has issued his strongest condemnation yet of the invasion of Ukraine, saying the unacceptable armed aggression must stop. Speaking to thousands of people in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican for his Sunday blessing, Pope Francis also said that the killing of children and unarmed civilians was barbaric.
With grief in my heart, I join my voice to that of the common people who implore an end to the war. In the name of God, let the cries of those who suffer be heard, and let the bombings and attacks cease. Let there be a real and decisive move towards negotiation, and let the humanitarian corridors be made effective and safe. In the name of God, I ask you, stop this massacre.
A Russian delegate involved in peace talks with Ukrainian officials says significant progress has been made in the latest round of discussions. The delegate said they thought both sides could soon arrive at a joint position. A member of the Ukrainian delegation has also said he thinks there could be results in the coming days. It's not known what any agreement might include. Ukraine has previously said it's willing to negotiate, but that it will not surrender or accept any ultimatums. Nearly 125,000 people have now been evacuated via humanitarian corridors from conflict zones in Ukraine. That's according to President Zelensky speaking in his latest video address. The president stressed that the key task is still Mariupol, where more than 400,000 people remain trapped. A humanitarian supply convoy carrying food and medical supplies has been dispatched to the besieged port city.
Russia has lost thousands of items of military equipment. They've lost 74 planes and 86 helicopters. We know they have more, but we also know that we will keep defending. Ukraine is not surrendering. Servicemen are not surrendering. The people are not surrendering.
Meanwhile, the government is offering £350 a month to anyone who opens up their home to Ukrainian refugees for at least 6 months rent-free. Under the new Homes for Ukraine scheme, those offering accommodation will be vetted and applicants will face security checks. The programme, to be rolled out this week, allows individuals, charities and community groups to bring people escaping the war to safety, even if they have no ties to the UK. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove said that he was considering welcoming a family into his own home. He also said the government would look at housing refugees in the homes of sanctioned oligarchs.
I want to explore an option which would allow us to use the homes and properties of sanctioned individuals for as long as they are sanctioned for humanitarian and other purposes. There's quite a high legal bar to cross. And we're not talking about permanent confiscation, but we are saying you're sanctioned, you're supporting Putin, this home is here, you have no right to use or profit from it.
Well, meanwhile, the Chancellor has urged British businesses to think very carefully about any investments in Russia that would support Putin's regime. Rishi Sunak has welcomed moves by companies such as BP and Shell, who've already pledged to move away from holding assets in the country. He also argues there is no case for new investment in Russia. Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now, let's return to Nana Akua.
So good afternoon. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. You're watching me, Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, what is it about these people who cannot accept the democratic so-called once-in-a-lifetime vote? And no, I'm not talking about Nicola Sturgeon and her gang, although this does apply to them. I'm talking about Brexit. Remember, the thing that we democratically voted for, the thing that those who lost the vote continue to go on and on and on about how stupid and racist the people were for voting for it, and patronisingly saying that they didn't know what they were voting for, and now see how things have turned out. I mean, it's no wonder they're often called Ramonas. It is an unhelpful and totally divisive term, but if the shoe fits, they parade the odd person who voted to leave who has changed their mind, as if that person is representative of the feelings of all of those who voted it. And they simply will not let go of the fact that they have lost this one. And now it's time to acknowledge this, instead of being a hindrance on progress, and to give this route a decent chance and unite behind it. It's a bit like watching The Apprentice, when one of the contestants has a silly idea, the majority overrule it, but that person refuses to toe the line, and in the end, they get fired. So you'll be interested to hear that in a move that is neither liberal nor democratic, the Liberal Democrats have resurfaced, and apparently, in their party's spring conference, which is due this Saturday, they will be calling for the UK's economic integration back into the EU. So basically, for the UK to rejoin the single market. Well, that's neither liberal or democratic. What a contradiction in terms. No mention of a referendum. Their plan, apparently supported by its leadership with Ed Davey at the helm, would give the UK businesses full access to the European Economic Area, reintroduce freedom of movement, and by doing this, they had resolved the Northern Ireland Protocol. And from what I understand of this, they will then attempt to get this through by forming a coalition with the Labour Party. God, talk about making the Labour Party even more unelectable. Not content with sinking their own ship, the Lib Dems are trying to get on board the Labour boat and capsize that one as well. Although Keir Starmer's doing a pretty good job of it himself, to be honest. Thankfully, though, even the Labour Party have backtracked on their leader's initial pledge during his leadership election to back the single market and to reintroduce freedom of movement. The Liberal Democrats cite the war in Ukraine as part of their reasoning. I mean, honestly, how low can you go? We're members of the Commonwealth, NATO and the UN, and unlike Ukraine, we have nuclear weapons. If that doesn't protect us, then nothing will. Of course, leaving the EU would cause a level of disruption, but it needs time, and I believe in the end it will turn out to be a wise move. But it could be argued that leaving the anti-democratic bloc has allowed us to set ourselves apart. I mean, we've had the fastest vaccine rollout in the continent. We were the first to send lethal aid to Ukraine. And, well, we've got one of the fastest growing economies of the G7. Hey, folks, the Liberal Democrats are back, and they appear to be neither liberal nor democratic. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. A new government scheme will pay people £350 a month to house a refugee from Ukraine. We'll be asking, is this enough, and is this even the right approach? And later we'll ask, should there be sports boycotts on things like Saudi and Qatar too? I mean, if we crack down on things like Russian money and the influence in football, then why can't we crack down on other nations accused of similar crimes? And our Worldview segment today, what other international issues could affect us here in the UK? That's all coming up in the way. But let's just tell me your thoughts on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not send me a tweet at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Welcome again to my panel. Andrew Pearce. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. And also Danny Kelly. So thank you, well done. It's lovely to see you. Fabulous. And you. Really good to see you. I listened to you a lot as well, and Danny, nice to see you again.
I got in there in the end.
Yeah, well, you're just there on the edge there. You're there every Sunday anyway. So, Andrew, what do you think of this? I mean, the Liberal Democrats, they're coming back. I mean, I don't know whether their banner is orange or yellow. I mean, what do you make of them?
Well, if you recall at the general election, their astonishing pitch to voters was, if you vote Lib Dem and we form the government, effectively we'll cancel Brexit, which was an astonishing vote, an astonishing pitch to voters, and they deservedly were massacred at the general election. And what was her name? Jo Swinson, remember her? She was the leader who came up with the idea. She even lost her seat. So that's what the voters thought of that plan. And here we go again. They're in complete denial. They never come to terms with the result of the referendum, the biggest ever vote in British history. And if Labour are mad enough to go down that route, it will be a gift for Boris Johnson and the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was comedically ironic when she lost that seat to the SNP in 2019. And I was thrilled, I was made up, because the attempted subversion of this democratic outcome, I thought was a disgrace. Now, I understand, first of all, they're democratically trying to change our relationship with the EU, but that's democratic. The subversion was the fact that we never even left the EU and they wanted to stop it. I always said that if the thousands of people who've lost their lives fighting for democracy, then all of that would have been in vain if we ignored the will of the people. OK, so if it turns out to be a damn squib, then that's fine. We can have a democratic referendum to see if we want to rejoin the EU. But to actually just subvert the will of the people, I thought that was reprehensible. I really did. And I don't know whether they've ever addressed that. Have you ever heard?
Well, I can remember talking to Ed Davey, who's now the leader, of course, Sir Ed, let's not forget his knighthood, and he said it was a good policy. He doesn't say it now. He didn't. But he said that was it was very much Jo Swinson's policy. Remember, she stood at the Liberal Democrat conference and said, "I stand before you as potentially the next Prime Minister of this country."
I remember that. Yeah.
Delusions of grandeur. And as it happens, she even lost her seat. Yeah. So, but Brexit is getting done, actually. It's not been great because always there was going to be huge issues because if you're tearing up a relationship that you've had with a trading organisation for decades. But we are getting there, slowly but surely, and it was always going to take time, and that's what the Lib Dems aren't prepared to give it. No, it doesn't seem to be, and I do actually remember all the subversion tactics that they all tried to join with this one. I mean, Emily Thornberry was crying, wasn't she? Was she the one that was crying? It was just such an awful time because obviously people felt that they had lost their vote and they weren't prepared to accept it. And what I can't contend with is this continual sort of regurgitation of attempting to try and upturn this democratically elected vote that we all did. They're trying to join another party with another party and then unite and then change the policy that way. In this, they've not mentioned any form of referendum.
At least that's democracy, though, isn't it? So they join with Labour. I think Keir Starmer...
but it's not really, is it? Because the referendum was a democratic vote that got the whole country to vote. Yeah. For them to then try and join with another party and then use that force instead of bringing it out to the public again to try and upturn that, I think is a bit unacceptable.
Keir Starmer 2 or 3 years ago said that as I understand, if my memory is correct, that he would offer a people's vote or along those lines. And I think he's been very quiet on that recently because he knows that that's not a winner.
Well, if you think about the famous Red Wall, which the Tories shattered at the last election, a lot of that was on the back of Brexit. A lot of it was also on the back, of course, that Labour's leap were being run by Jeremy Corbyn, who was not patriotic, virtually a Marxist, and whose position we never really knew on Brexit, actually, because he did very little, if you recall. He didn't want to talk about it because at heart he as a lefty before he became Labour leader, he always campaigned was to leave the European Union.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Keir Starmer, we should remember though, was the Brexit spokesman in Labour that came up with the idea of a second referendum. We must not let voters forget that. The current leader of the Labour Party, campaigned for Corbyn, who was not fit to be Prime Minister, and he came up with the flawed policy of a second referendum. So we shouldn't forget that.
No.
May I just also add this? I think this is significant. A lot of people voted to leave the European Union.
I did.
Because we were net contributors. So we were millions of pounds a week. As I understand, this isn't for us to rejoin the EU. So it would be more like a Norway deal. So we would, if you like, benefit from a single market where the goods are all... We'd sort out Northern Ireland overnight. But we wouldn't have to pay in our member fees, if you like. So some people may be drawn sympathetically to that.
Well, I don't think they will, because part of it involves freedom of movement, and that's the other bit. A lot of people voted.
And you'll again have to sign up to all the EU's wretched rules and regulations, of which they spew out thousands virtually every week and every month.
Yeah, there was a reason why people voted to leave, and that was simply it. There was too much red tape. I know we've got our own red tape. In fact, we're replacing it with some green tape that we don't really need, and that's all the net zero nonsense. But let's hope in time we can realise that that's not going to work out. But frankly, a lot of this, it was so divisive. And I actually look at the MEPs and I really couldn't name any of them. And I also noted that there were no people of colour. I didn't see any. I mean, if I missed something here, they're totally unrepresentative of the community and the environment that I'm part of. Were there any coloured black people there?
But weren't we the racists for voting for Brexit? Because so many people would come up to me, they'd get this close to my face and say, "You're racist."
Honestly?
Yeah. Happened again and again and again. That's awful. Always white people who say it.
Well, that's the irony, because I remember showing someone a picture of, as they were all standing there, all the MEPs, the European Parliament, there, and I said, "Do you see any black people here?"
Tell me that.
Because if you're saying that we're racist for choosing to leave, then what are they?
May I ask, Andrew, what was your response when someone would throw that at you?
If they get that close...
a headbutt?
Well, I mean, you'd be tempted. I just would ignore it, or just say thank you very much for your interest. I mean, sometimes they would get parallel to me and say, "Racist vote, you've destroyed this country." But generally, I would just ignore it.
Do you know the one thing I hated was the line that they came out with? Not all racists voted for Brexit, but every... Hang on, I've got it the wrong way around. Not everyone who is racist if they voted for Brexit, but no one... Oh, Andrew, help me out.
We know what you mean.
What is it? Let's just give him another bit.
I can't remember.
I've never
not necessarily racist.
Yeah, let's leave him there.
But the gist was that every racist voted for Brexit.
Yeah.
That was the gist of it.
Well, I find it extremely patronising when people, A, tell me that I didn't know what I was voting for.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, look, I knew what I was voting for, and B, that I voted for it because I'm slightly racist. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I know exactly what I voted for. I didn't know the exact form it would take, but then neither do they know how the EU, the European Union, is going to change. And it is evolving in a way that some of them probably didn't predict. I mean, there was talk of an EU army. I don't know whether that's on the table still.
Well, that's been spoken about in the last couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, another good reason not to want to be involved. How can you have an army of 27 countries? I mean, who's going to be the general? Who's going to be in charge?
It's going to be a mess.
Yeah,
it would be a complete mess. I mean,
But I can, talking of these Remainers, when Michael Heseltine came on my radio programme on LBC and said they just didn't know what they were voting for, it was like somebody had lit the touch paper. There was, I can't recall so many calls flooding in. People were outraged. They were outraged.
It's offensive.
It's an insult. I don't know why people would think that would be a good thing to say. And the other thing I find quite amusing is when people say, "Well, look now, have you changed your mind now? Have you seen how it is?" And I'm thinking, no, have you? Have you changed yours? Why would somebody change their mind because they, why would you? I haven't changed my mind.
No, I haven't.
I personally haven't seen anything negative since we left.
No,
and I'm in business away from journalism. I haven't noticed anything.
Well, the Northern Ireland, they haven't got it right. And they have to get that sorted out. But that was always a problem. And when Boris said he knew, I think, actually, there was going to be problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol, but what we can do is we can withdraw from it.
Yeah.
And that could be the nuclear option, which is what I think Lord Frost would have done if he was still
another
in charge.
Nuclear option.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true, another nuclear option. But yes, no, it's a good point. Well, what are your views? Get in touch. I mean, did you know what you were voting for? I'm pretty sure you did. Let me know at GB News. How do you feel when people say that? Slightly patronising it, isn't it? And what about your view of the Liberal Democrats? Do they become more electable after you've heard that? If you just join me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, still to come, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is £350 a month enough for you to house a Ukrainian refugee? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me your thoughts. You can also tweet at GBNews. And there is a poll up right now asking, is £350 a month enough to house a Ukrainian refugee? Cast your vote now. But first, it's the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry for many, but there'll be some showers here and there. Let's take a look at the details. Heavy showers from the afternoon will ease in southwest England, leaving a largely dry picture and clear skies. A few mist and fog patches may form later in the evening. Skies will be cloudier in parts of the southeast with a few outbreaks of rain in the east. This rain will gradually clear through the night. Showers will begin to ease across Wales this evening. A few mist patches are possible under clear spells. It will turn chilly tonight with a rural frost too. Clearer skies will form across the Midlands. Fog patches will also form in some prone spots, particularly in the countryside. It'll be a dry evening across northern England. Strong winds will begin to ease, allowing temperatures to fall away. A cloudier picture across Scotland with a few showers remaining this evening. After a windy day, winds will gradually ease a little bit overnight and it should turn largely dry later. However, it will stay windy across Northern Ireland, with showers still spreading into western areas overnight. Showers will be heavy at times, perhaps with the odd rumble of thunder as well. Tomorrow, most places will stay dry overnight with clear skies. This will give a patchy frost in the southwest and parts of Scotland, and that's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So good afternoon if you just tuned in. Where have you been? It's coming up to 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News and it is time for the Great British Debate today. And I'm asking, is £350 a month enough to house a Ukrainian refugee? The government have announced this morning that Britain's opening their homes to Ukrainian refugees fleeing the Russian invasion will receive a thank you payment of £350 per month. Now, the Homes for Ukraine scheme is to be rolled out this week, and it will also allow charities, community groups and businesses to bring to the UK, even if they have no ties to the country. So you can basically do that if you're a charity. The Ukrainian doesn't have to have a tie to the UK. But is £350 enough to persuade you to take on a stranger and bring them into your own home, even if this is enough? Would you be prepared to do it, or is it about the principle? I'm joined, of course, now by Ivan Sampson, who's an immigration lawyer. Ivan, thank you so much for joining me. Right, Ivan, so I want to ask you, first of all, what's your view of the government's announcement of this £350?
Well, I mean, it's very admirable, and it's welcome that people want to welcome refugees into their home to protect those that are fleeing persecution, fleeing a war zone conflict, and that's to be applauded. The problem we have is that if the number of people coming doesn't match the amount of sponsorship that people are willing to give, and also I find it quite amazing that the government is putting on the shoulders of ordinary people in the country to solve the problem of the Ukrainian refugees. I mean, they should have a plan. They've known about it for several weeks, if not months, and haven't come up with an effective plan to house these refugees. At the same time, look, Poland doesn't have a choice about who comes across the border. So it's all very well, applauding Poland for being so welcoming, but they don't have a choice. We do have a choice. We can decide who we want to let into the country and the process and criteria we use to select them. And that's absolutely right. I think the government held back, thought about it, and then came up with a plan. Look, it's very great people want to welcome Ukraine, but what about the Syrians and Afghans and Iraqis? I'd like to ask the questions, would the same people welcoming Ukrainians also welcome a Syrian refugee? And there's a clear distinction between if you're a brown refugee or if you're a white refugee. There's clearly a distinction because people who are already here waiting an asylum decision are not permitted to work. Whereas my understanding is that these refugees coming over will have that right to work. So there's clearly a differentiation of inconsistency of treatment for the white European refugees as opposed to refugees coming from other war zone conflict areas.
Ivan, do you think so? Because I can actually distinctly remember the criticism that Priti Patel was given for actually keeping the criteria quite similar. People were saying, oh, hurry up, the British government are not getting it right, they need to do that. So I think that your point is slightly unfair in a sense that, in actual fact, the criteria was almost identical, and then people started complaining, and then Priti Patel started to think differently and started to make things slightly easier, because it is clear that these people are 100% fleeing a conflict which is unfolding in front of our eyes on our TV screens. And I think I'm not so sure that that rings true. And also, if I also equate this to, say, the EU, where British people voted to leave the EU, and part of that was immigration, and those people were mostly white. So I'm not sure that is a fair comment, but I understand what you're saying. What about Russian refugees as well, though? Because there'll be a lot of people in Russia who would be probably thinking about getting out of there or trying to get out of there, or who've already fled. Do you think that, as you said, it should be extended to others? But what about those from Russia as well?
I mean, look, the asylum rules are quite complex and quite tight in the way you apply them. So you have to have different processes which address the problems that these individuals face and not be bogged down in rules and bureaucracy. But my concerns are, if I was Putin, I'd be sending over several hundred of my own people mingled in with these refugees. And that's a worry, it's a concern. I mean, 2 individuals caused mayhem in Salisbury. Imagine if you had hundreds of Putin's agents in the country, masked and disguising themselves as refugees. So I think we do need to have a robust process of identifying and risk assessing the people coming over. And if we know the behavior of Vladimir Putin, he's more than likely going to, use these sorts of methods to try and infiltrate our country. So I think that's something that we need to consider very carefully about who we let in and vetting once they get here.
Because they haven't mentioned any sort of checks and balances yet, and I know that the sort of detail will be revealed tomorrow, or a bit more of that detail anyway. So I would hope that there'll be some other checks and balances. Have they mentioned any sort of checks and balances for those who are going to bring the refugees into their homes as well? Because obviously, you know, if you're a single woman with a child or single woman, it's open to any predator as well.
I mean, look, the idea seems like a good idea, but you know, time will tell who's right. Time's going to tell if letting people in without being properly vetted is the right approach, or having a more cautious approach is better for the protection of this country. We have given no evidence or no information about the vetting of people coming over. Look, if you've had your house burnt, you don't have a passport. So what happens to them? What if you've got children, orphans, who don't have a passport? What happens to them? You've got people may not be able to prove their nationality. Now, my understanding is the government will still allow a level of discretion to allow them in, and then we'll start vetting them once they get here. Look, I think most Ukrainians will want to go back. I accept that. They're being forced to leave their country. And so the measures that have been put into place are temporary. They're not permanent measures. Whereas many of the refugees coming from war-torn conflicts are looking to settle here permanently. There's a big difference between the two. So, but I think we need proper vetting, and the government needs to give us information of how they're going to do that. That's very important.
For sure. And also, what if it's not working out? Because they're saying a minimum of 6 months. I think that was the criteria, wasn't it? And they haven't set out what that deal would be either. Have you heard anything about that?
No. I mean, I spoke to JCWI on LBC yesterday. We were both on LBC, and we don't have that information. And they would be the first point of contact for the government to share that information with the rest of us.
Well, it will be interesting. I mean, and just to finish this off, would you welcome a refugee into your home?
Absolutely. In fact, I spoke to my wife about this. So I'd be delighted to welcome a refugee into a home. I think it's. I'm a Christian as well, so I've got that part of our family culture, and it's our belief that we should welcome these people.
And is £350 enough?
Who knows? I mean, I'm not sure whether that's going to be enough. But do you know that the Afghan refugees are costing the country £1 million a day? So it's a practical problem. It's a logistical problem. It's a financial issue. And I think it does share the burden of the refugees and monies we don't have. But, you know, one thing's for sure, we need to applaud the government for the help they've given Ukraine. I'm not a pro-Conservative, pro-Boris, but you've got to tip your hat to where they've done well, and they've been very good in supporting the Ukrainian government in both in arms and also giving donations.
Well, Ivan, it's been really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Ivan Sampson, he's an immigration lawyer. Right, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Pete says, I wouldn't do it. 350 quid is nowhere near enough. Rosie says too many people will just think that they can make more money out of rent and then there's no point taking one on. It has to make economic sense. Stephen says, I would do it. It's a reasonable payment for doing a good deed. You know, I think I'd probably do it as well. Keep your thoughts coming. If you just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with the Great British Debate, and I'm asking, is £350 a month enough to take in a Ukrainian refugee? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Andrew Pearce and Danny Kelly. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's 4:32. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. At least 35 people have been killed and 134 wounded in a Russian airstrike on a large Ukrainian military base near Poland in what appears to be the most westerly attack so far. Russia has admitted it carried out the attack, which is located less than 15 miles from the Polish border. They claim to have killed up to 180 foreign mercenaries and destroyed a large amount of weapons supplied by outside nations. The Pope has issued his strongest condemnation yet of the invasion of Ukraine, saying the unacceptable armed aggression must stop. Speaking to thousands of people in St. Peter's Square for his Sunday blessing, Pope Francis also said that the killing of children and unarmed civilians was barbaric. A Russian delegate involved in peace talks with Ukrainian officials says significant progress has been made in the latest round of discussions. The delegate said they thought both sides could soon arrive at a joint position. A member of the Ukrainian delegation has also said he thinks there could be results in the coming days. It's not known what any agreement might include. Ukraine has previously said it's willing to negotiate, but it will not surrender or accept any ultimatums. Nearly 125,000 people have now been evacuated via humanitarian corridors from conflict zones in Ukraine. That's according to President Zelensky speaking in his latest video address. The president stressed that the key task is still Mariupol, where more than 400,000 people remain trapped. A humanitarian supply convoy bringing food and medical supplies is now 50 miles away from the besieged port city. Well, on TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News, and we'll be back to Nana Akua in just a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
If you've just joined me, this is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. So it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is £350 a month enough to house a Ukrainian refugee? Now, the government have announced this morning that Britain's opening their homes to Ukrainian refugees fleeing the Russian invasion will receive a thank you payment of £350 per month. The Homes for Ukraine scheme, to be rolled out this week, will also allow charities, communities and other groups and businesses to bring to the UK other refugees, even if they have no ties to the country. But is this enough money? 350 quid, is that enough to persuade you to take on a stranger into your own home? Let's see what you think. I mean, get in touch right now at GB News or email gbviews@gbnews. Right, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Andrew Pearce of the Daily Mail and Danny Kelly, broadcaster. So, Danny Kelly, 350 quid, would that help you out? Do you think you'd do it?
I have to be candid. I do have the space, but I don't want to take in a refugee. I'm sorry. I'm not a counsellor. I'm a car dealer, I'm a journalist, I'm a broadcaster. And it may seem very hard-headed of me to say that, but I'm just being honest. I don't want to be one of these media types that says they'll do something, or they're promoting and advocating it. And yet, when it comes to actually demonstrating that what you say you believe in, then I just want to be honest.
Well,
I wouldn't want to.
There's no chance of that, Danny. You're all right with that.
I remember Nicola Sturgeon first came to Scotland. She said she would open up her home to a Syrian refugee. That was back in 2016.
Yeah.
She didn't.
No, she didn't.
And now Michael Gove was challenged today, and he seemed to imply that he's considering it. So that would be interesting. He's got a place in central London somewhere, so that'd be interesting. I'll be honest, I'm not going to take a refugee either. There are other ways you can help support it. My newspaper's run an amazing appeal, which has raised millions of pounds already, because that's Daily Mail readers are very generous. Contrary to what a lot of people say, Daily Mail readers, Brexiteers and all that. They're great, noble people. But I think the whole idea of £350 a month, I didn't know that was coming. It was a complete bolt out of the blue. I don't think many other countries in Europe are paying anything to households to take in refugees, and I've not heard that many other countries are even promoting the scheme in the way Britain is. So it's not a lot. It's a gesture, isn't it? Because it's per household, the 350, not per person. And if you've got a mum and 2 kids, that's going to work out about £10 a day.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do it. I think I may have spare room, so if I can hear the detail, then I'd be interested in doing it myself. You know, because I don't think there's anything. I think it's nice to do that. I actually, years ago, I did this play, and it was kinder transport. So it was. Do you remember that? So that was the same sort of thing, but during the last war. And I was somebody who was taken on by somebody through this whole process. I was an actress acting. I wasn't really somebody, I was acting. And there was a bit where I got to swear and shout out loud, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But yes, anyway.
I found it
has been done before.
With the gentleman. Because I can't remember what your first question was, but entwined in his answer was the race card.
They always do that,
and the suggestion that we're opening our doors because they're white, but not that they're brown. But it was interesting when you asked him, would you take in a refugee? And he said he's spoken to his wife. The implication was that he never took a brown person.
Yeah, perhaps I should have
see that?
I
did. Yeah, the implication, because if he had taken a Syrian in, he would have said, well, I've done it before, I'll do it again. So it was a paradoxical situation. Him suggesting that we're a bunch of racists, he himself is taking in a white family potentially, but not a brown family.
He also
double standards.
There's also that point too. A lot of the Afghans who fled Kabul after the fall of the Kabul, many of those are still in hotels, and that's costing the taxpayer a lot of money, and it's not great for them. So if people can be housing families, great. But I think there are all sorts of issues because the people will be traumatised. They could be separated from the menfolk in their family. There may be language issues if they can't speak English. It's a really, really fraught proposition, I think. So people have to think very carefully. And £350 isn't going to be the thing, right, I'll definitely do it. Because where's that going to go if you've got 3 people under your roof?
It's not going to go far. It's definitely more the principle of it. But I think it is a lovely gesture, and if people can do it, then that's great. And the reason why I push back on the criticism of the government, because I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, oh, we were too slow to react, we were too this and that and the other, because the people of Ukraine probably, they don't want to leave Ukraine. I mean, they don't want to be. There's a difference between an economic migrant who's, boarded a dinghy to get here and somebody who doesn't want to leave their hometown. It's clear they don't want to, but they have to. Otherwise, they're going to be bombed to smithereens. We've seen exactly what that ghastly man is capable of. So that is why. And also, the countries that border Ukraine are more likely the places where these people would rather be because they want to be near their home.
The Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey, came up with a completely preposterous idea. He said, what we should do is give President Zelensky an honorary knighthood. What the hell is he going to do with that then? What a ridiculous bit of virtue signalling. What he needs, Zelensky, is more arms, and that is what the British government is doing. We're going to supply even more anti-tank weapons, even more missiles to bring down Russian planes. That's what they need, constructive help. And we were the first to supply that military aid, and we trained 22,000 Ukrainian troops. So we were there first on this, and I think that's been the most important thing. That's why you often see Ukrainians, when they're interviewed, they often say, God save the Queen, which is fabulous. Because they think she probably signed off on the aid, which of course she did. Well, she is Commander-in-Chief after all of the armed forces, but that's a lovely... So they know in Ukraine that we've been a very supportive country and supportive ally.
Well, Zelensky did say thank you so much to the United Kingdom.
And he mentioned Boris by name, and they've got a really good rapport, Boris and Zelensky. They speak a lot on the phone. I think he speaks to Boris much more than he does to Mr. Macron or the German Chancellor.
Or probably even Joe Biden, but then he doesn't say much anyway, does he? I mean, honestly...
He gets Iranians mixed up with... Ukrainians mixed up with Iranians.
I mean, that was terrible. I don't know how people actually let him get away with that. He's clearly not quite all together with it on this. And the weakness of America is partly the whole reason why I think this has been...
Robert Gates, who was Obama's defence secretary or national security advisor, said in the last 40 years, Joe Biden has been wrong on every major foreign policy issue, and he's on the same side. He's a Democrat, and he said Biden's been wrong for 40 years on every major foreign policy issue.
No, it doesn't
And he's the
surprise me.
leader of the free world, allegedly.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And, of course, his poll rating is plummeting, although there are those that say he's handling this war really well. But I don't think we'd be at war if Trump was still in charge. But I know Danny disagrees with me.
No, I wonder, it's the withdrawal of Afghanistan, the troops, the dramatic unilateral without letting anyone know. Yeah. So if Trump was in charge, would he have done that manner? Well, he says no.
No, he wouldn't.
OK, well, let's just accept that. So if we hadn't have done that, there'd still be troops, and would Putin have felt emboldened to invade Ukraine? That's all I'm suggesting. I'm just suggesting whether... I think Biden's playing it well at the moment, but whether we'd be in this situation or not is you're right, different.
I think Putin's been planning this since 2016 when the chemical weapons were used in Syria, and it was supposed to be a red line for Obama.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a red line for Britain. The British Parliament voted against military action in Syria, and Obama withdrew. And Putin obviously thought, well, that's what happens with chemical weapons. He's invaded Ukraine.
Well, also, he said it out, isn't it? Because the actual invasion started in 2014, of course. And but then we've had President Trump sort of presiding over part of that period of time. So that wouldn't have been a wise time for Putin to do anything. And now, of course, Joe Biden's proved his inadequacies.
Well, and he also did say, remember, Biden said, I don't mind if there's a minor incursion from Russia into Ukraine. What's a minor incursion?
If you think about it with hindsight, I wonder whether that was a clever thing to say. Because I know, but what I'm saying is with hindsight, Andrew, if it had stopped there, then he wouldn't be necessarily having tanks rolling on the streets of Kiev. I wonder, because I think everybody, their intelligence knew he was going to invade.
I'm not a military strategist, but I think it's astonishing that Biden keeps telling Russia what he won't do.
I know. The thing is, so he is giving Vladimir Putin the opportunity to decide where the red line is.
Yeah.
And that's not very good. What you should be doing is pushing and pushing and pushing until the other side says something, and then you ask them, you negotiate with them and say, well, we'll push that back if you do this. There's a negotiation that could happen, instead of saying, oh, well, I'm not going to supply or work with the Polish to supply the Ukrainians with planes because that would be an act of war and that would mean that... And it's like, well, how do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
Would Trump enforce a no-fly zone, do you think?
Who knows with Trump? That's the whole point about why I think Putin would have been more reluctant to invade, because you don't know which way Trump is going to behave. He was so unpredictable. It was impossible to know, actually. That would have been a deterrent, in a sense.
Well, that's what Vladimir Putin has in his hand there, because we don't know what he's going to do. We don't know how he's going to do it, and he's got a grasp on his media, and he doesn't allow them to start saying, oh, there's 10 missiles here and we've got this. I mean, I think our media are way too loose with, coordinates and all the information. I think we're giving away too much. But anyway, let's see what you think, because this show is nothing without your views. So let's welcome our great British voice. This is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us your thoughts on the topics that we're discussing. Jackie von Lowen, she's there in Hertfordshire. Jackie, thank you for joining us. So, Jackie...
Hello, thank you.
Would you take on a refugee? 350 quid?
Well, funnily enough, I was thinking about that the other day. Would I actually take somebody on? And I actually was very surprised that the government came out with £350, because to me, actually, you would take somebody on from the goodness of your heart, as opposed to a monetary reward. And I know that about 2,000 people had expressed an interest before they had made that announcement. So to me, £350, what does that actually get you? And how did they come up with that amount? So if it's £350 for the month, that's just over £10 a day. And how's that going to tip you to actually take somebody on? And it might just be that they want it to tip a percentage of people because they think that it's going to be a monetary interest. But in actual fact, people really aren't motivated by money. They're motivated by something a lot more. And I think that we have shown a great warmth to the Ukrainians. We're very good at collecting, raising funds, collecting clothing, sending supplies. Would we take them into our household? And I read today, actually, that only 9% of the population said that they would do that. Is £350 going to tip the rest? And I would say probably not.
So would you take a refugee on then? You said you were thinking
actually, do you know, I am thinking about it, and I think actually I'm much more likely to take on a young person that's come here by themselves, especially maybe somebody who's between the 16 to 18 bracket, because I think that is a real problem that they're going to have, first of all, for safety. So yes, in that case, yes, I think that for that, but I wouldn't necessarily do it for £350 because actually that's just like a nothing. I would rather just take them on because I want to take them on, and because I want to give that. It's an empathy thing. It's not a motivation, isn't the money.
Yeah. Well, Jackie, thank you so much. It's really good to hear your view. There's Jackie Von Lowen in Hertfordshire. Right, so today I'm asking whether £350 is enough, and lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Jonathan says they probably pay more for hotels for people who've crossed the channel in a dinghy. Well, that is the point, isn't it? We're saving them money, aren't we, frankly, by doing that? They should maybe give you a little bit more money, I think, on this one. Ian says this whole thing isn't about making money, it's charity. Well, it isn't really, Ian. I can see what you're saying, but I sort of feel that you should at least reimburse people a little bit more. Lottie says Polish families are housing them for free, no money needed. Justin says, I think that this will be open to massive abuse, to be honest. Yeah, that is true, and that is a good point, but then I suppose that's an argument to keep it at £350. Right, there is a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking, is £350 a month enough to house a Ukrainian refugee? And currently, can you guess? 31% of you say yes, 69% of you say no. You mean people. No, it's true. It's fair enough. It's really good to hear your views. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. If you've just joined in, welcome on board. It's just coming up to 9 minutes to 5 o'clock. After the break, we'll be talking about the rising cost of fuel as we take a world view. And in the next hour, Eddie the Eagle will be with me live in the studio for Outside. But first, it's the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry for many, but there'll be some showers here and there. Let's take a look at the details. Heavy showers from the afternoon will ease in southwest England, leaving a largely dry picture and clear skies. A few mist and fog patches may form later in the evening. Skies will be cloudier in parts of the southeast with a few outbreaks of rain in the east. This rain will gradually clear through the night. Showers will begin to ease across Wales this evening. A few mist patches are possible under clear spells. It will turn chilly tonight with a rural frost too. Clearer skies will form across the Midlands. Fog patches will also form in some prone spots, particularly in the countryside. It'll be a dry evening across northern England. Strong winds will begin to ease, allowing temperatures to fall away. A cloudier picture across Scotland with a few showers remaining this evening. After a windy day, winds will gradually ease a little bit overnight and it should turn largely dry later. However, it will stay windy across Northern Ireland, with showers still spreading into western areas overnight. Showers will be heavy at times, perhaps with the odd rumble of thunder as well. Tomorrow, most places will stay dry overnight with clear skies. This will give a patchy frost in the southwest and parts of Scotland, and that's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs.
sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's fast approaching 55 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, just as the global pandemic appeared to be abating, the largest war seen in Europe in decades has erupted, with Russia invading Ukraine. Now, as ever, this section of the show is called Worldview, and it's all about international key issues that may impact the lives of us here in the UK. And I'm joined now in the studio by Foreign Affairs analyst James Marlowe. James, thank you so much for joining me. Right, so let's get a catch-up on this. Let's start with the fuel prices. I mean, they're shooting up quite high at the moment. Obviously, there's an impact with the war. Can you talk us through how that is affecting us because of Ukraine?
Nana, I'm old enough to remember the early 1970s, when in those days, initially it was the National Union of Mine Workers who were actually shutting down our lights. I remember at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, we were told that was it, lights were out. 1 minute we had to go and get the candles and the matches. And of course, inflation was rising. Speed forward to October 73 was when the Middle East war occurred between Israel and the Middle Eastern Arab countries as well. There was an embargo on oil at that time. Now come forward to 2022. There are similarities. Inflation is growing. Of course, we're paying more for national insurance, food prices. It's not OPEC, it's not Saudi Arabia, but this time it is Russia. I was looking at some interesting figures earlier on. We produce worldwide 100 million barrels of oil a day. That's an enormous amount.
So here in the UK?
No, that's right. World consumption.
Right, yeah.
Out of that, Russia produces 10 million barrels a day. 4 million stay inside of Russia, 6 million are exported. So initially, the West, Britain and the EU, because the United States have already stopped their oil coming from Russia, initially needs to find another 6 million, which is not easy. Boris Johnson, of course, has gone to Saudi Arabia, asked them to start producing more barrels of oil. Now, the reason we got into this state is not just because of Russia, but because the pandemic. And therefore, because there was suddenly there was no demand.
Well, the pandemic,
fuel.
the prices were so low, wasn't it? I mean, it was unbelievable.
There was no.
They couldn't shift it. Now it's totally the opposite.
Well, there was no
nobody was
reason.
doing anywhere. No,
exactly. There was no reason to go ahead and produce oil. So therefore, the Russians cut back, the Saudis cut back, and also the Gulf states cut back as well. All of a sudden, there was a sudden change, a big demand. That's why prices have increased in a dramatic way. And therefore, we are looking at a tough time for the rest of this year, and I can't see it getting better. But nevertheless, if I can switch very quickly over to the Russian-Ukrainian war at this point as well, we are looking at Ukraine, an independent country, declared its independence in 1991. It was a 92% majority. That's what the people voted for. Russia has invaded, as we know. This is day 18 of the war. Amazingly, Volodymyr Zelensky has held out with his Ukrainian army as well. The citizens who have stayed there are now being bombarded by the Russians in either to try and get them to cross over the border and get them out. But I can't see the Russians stopping. They're going to raise, unfortunately, they're going to probably, in order to get control of Ukraine, to raise it to the ground. And as the bombing gets closer to the NATO borders, i.e. Poland, the question is, if a shell falls over in Polish territory, does NATO respond, Or does it say, well, hang on a second, that was probably an accident. Let's not start, these are the words that can come from America, let's not start World War III at this point.
Well, because I think we do respond, because that was the deal, isn't it?
I can't see Biden responding initially because the Ukrainians will say that it was a Russian shell that fell over, but it wasn't aimed directly at the Russian.
Well, that's irrelevant. No.
Rather.
The deal was if anything lands on EU soil, on NATO soil, then we won't tolerate that. And that would be a warning to Russia, to warn them that, listen, back off, you're getting too close to the border. I think you'd have to respond. And very briefly then, would you say that because of that, because we're talking about that, the war could expand beyond NATO, beyond Ukraine into NATO territory?
Well, it really depends if one of these shells falls over, because, of course, Obama in 2014 said to the Syrians, Bashar al-Assad, if they did use chemical warfare, that would be a red line. I'm quoting you directly. Of course, they did use chemical warfare at least 7 times. And nothing was done. So that was the green light from anyone else who wanted to go ahead and take advantage. And also Putin saw what was taking place as well. So it's very difficult. However, as I said last week, if the Russians get full control of Ukraine, the question is, where do they go next? Moldova, on the border of Romania and Ukraine, is not a member of NATO. They're very concerned right now that the Russians are going to come into Moldova, which again does not cause the NATO to respond because it's not a member of NATO.
Interesting. I mean, Finland are talking about joining NATO as well after watching this. But listen, James, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. That is, of course, James Marlowe. He is a foreign affairs analyst. You're watching me. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. So it's 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. At least 35 people have been killed and 134 wounded in a Russian airstrike on a large Ukrainian military base near Poland, in what appears to be the most westerly attack so far. Russia has admitted it carried out the attack, which is located less than 15 miles from the Polish border. They claim to have killed up to 180 foreign mercenaries and that it had destroyed a large amount of weapons supplied by outside nations. The base is the site of joint drills with NATO, and foreign military instructors have previously worked there. It's not known if any were present at the time of the attack. Meanwhile, President Zelensky was pictured walking to a hospital today to visit wounded soldiers. He took selfies and presented some of them with medals thought to be state honours. Well, an American journalist has been shot and killed in the Ukrainian town of Irpin near Kiev. Another journalist has also reportedly been wounded after Russian soldiers opened fire on their vehicle. In a statement, local police had initially said Brent Renault worked for the New York Times. However, the newspaper says he had worked with them over the years but was not currently on assignment. The Times called Mr. Renault a talented filmmaker. The Pope has issued his strongest condemnation yet of the invasion of Ukraine, saying the unacceptable armed aggression must stop. Speaking to thousands of people in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican for his Sunday blessing, Pope Francis also said the killing of children and unarmed civilians was barbaric.
With grief in my heart, I join my voice to that of the common people who implore an end to the war. In the name of God, let the cries of those who suffer be heard, and let the bombings and attacks cease. Let there be a real and decisive move towards negotiation, and let the humanitarian corridors be made effective and safe. In the name of God, I ask you, stop this massacre.
A Russian delegate involved in peace talks with Ukrainian officials says significant progress has been made in the latest round of discussions. The delegate said they both thought sides could soon arrive at a joint position. A member of the Ukrainian delegation has also said he thinks there could be results in the coming days. It's not known what any agreement might include. Ukraine has previously said it's willing to negotiate, but that it won't surrender or accept any ultimatums. Nearly 125,000 people have now been evacuated via humanitarian corridors from conflict zones in Ukraine. That's according to President Zelensky speaking in his latest video address. The president stressed that the key task is still Mariupol, where more than 400,000 people remain trapped. A humanitarian supply convoy carrying food and medical supplies has been dispatched to the besieged port city.
Russia has lost thousands of items of military equipment. They've lost 74 planes and 86 helicopters. We know they have more, but we also know that we will keep defending. Ukraine is not surrendering. Servicemen are not surrendering. The people are not surrendering.
Well, back here, the government is offering £350 a month to anyone who opens up their home to Ukrainian refugees for at least 6 months rent-free. Under the new Homes for Ukraine scheme, those offering accommodation will be vetted and applicants will face security checks. The programme, to be rolled out this week, allows individuals, charities and community groups to bring people escaping the war to safety, even if they have no ties to the UK. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove said that he was considering welcoming a family into his own home. He also said the government would look at housing refugees in the homes of sanctioned oligarchs.
I want to explore an option which would allow us to use the homes and properties of sanctioned individuals for as long as they are sanctioned for humanitarian and other purposes. There's quite a high legal bar to cross. And we're not talking about permanent confiscation, but we are saying you're sanctioned, you're supporting Putin, this home is here, you have no right to use or profit from it.
Meanwhile, the Chancellor has urged British businesses to think very carefully about any investments in Russia that would support Putin's regime. Rishi Sunak has welcomed move by companies such as BP and Shell, who've already pledged to move away from holding assets in the country. He also argues there's no case for new investment in Russia. Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Nana Akua.
This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's Andrew Pearce and also Danny Kelly. Still to come, each Sunday at 5 o'clock in Outside, I'm joined by a celebrity or someone who's had a very interesting life to find out about life after the job. We talk highs and lows and lessons learned and what comes next on the outside. And today, it's a man who soars like an eagle, Michael Edwards, or Eddie the Eagle, as he's better known. He'll be joining me in the studio to talk about his career as an Olympic ski jumper. In my Great British Debate this hour, as the world gets tough with Russia, I'll be asking if we should boycott sports in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Given the well-documented abuse of migrant workers in Qatar, is it really right that this year's World Cup is being hosted there? You can also let me know your thoughts on all the topics that we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So now it is time for Outside today, where I talk about, we'll get a look into the peek into a life of somebody who's had a very interesting career. Now today is actually the closing ceremony of the Beijing Winter Olympics, the Paralympics, sorry, which will take place with Team GB taking 6 medals. We've not always done so well at the Winter Games or even won medals, but at the 1988 Games in Calgary, one British competitor won hearts around the world. Let's take a look at him in action.
5 meters, he's off first in the second and final round. Here on the 70-meter hill, the fans are going crazy for Eddie.
They're saying, Eddie, Eddie, send down Eddie. And Eddie is whooping it up there. He's been waving to the crowd, starting away from the top position of the whole jump. Friends here, we're doing good things, and let's enjoy ourselves.
On his way.
That jump looked a little farther. I think he almost got the 60-meter mark. His first jump was 55 meters, so if he can have a longer one here.
What on earth would possess anyone to do that? Yes, of course, Eddie the Eagle Edwards. Now, he's more commonly known as Eddie the Eagle and competed in both the 70-metre and the 90-metre events. He's finished last in both of them, but at least he took part, for goodness sake. I wouldn't dare. But he won people over with his can-do spirit and determination to never give up. Qualification rules for the next Games were tightened, so Eddie, unfortunately, could not return for the 1992 French Games. But ever since then, he's used the fame he gained to raise thousands of pounds for good causes with jumping and all sorts of things. I'm going to say that Eddie the Eagle Edwards joins me now. Eddie! Eddie!
Oh,
I remember you.
You look far too young to remember 34 years ago.
No, I do actually remember that. How old are you can say?
No, I don't.
You dare. You don't say either.
No.
I noticed you've hurt your finger. What happened there?
I put a saw through it last year.
Oh, for goodness.
The fingernail's falling off. Yeah, last year. I keep putting plasters on it.
Are you an accident-prone type person?
No. I said that I walked in a cupboard the other night, so I've got a bit of a black eye from that. But no, I'm not usually accident-prone.
Not usually. So, Eddie, I'm going to ask you, what on earth possessed you to want to do that particular discipline? Because it doesn't look easy.
No, it was an economic decision, really. I was in America racing, and to ski race was costing me $250 a day, but to go ski jumping, it was costing me $5 a day. So it was a no-brainer. I could afford to ski jump, but I couldn't afford to carry on ski racing. So I started ski jumping, and it was only after I started that I then realised that we've never had a jumper before. And then I managed to qualify. I asked what the qualification was to go to Calgary. I managed to reach that, and went to Calgary Olympics and became Eddie the Eagle.
No, what were you best at, though? Were you best at the ski racing or the jumping?
Oh, yeah, I was best at ski racing at that time. And when I went to Calgary in 1988, I was still very much a beginner. I'd only been jumping for 20 months. And everybody else, though, had been jumping for 20 years. So there was no way that I was going to beat anybody. But for me, just getting to those Olympic Games was my gold medal. And I loved being there, and people loved me for what I represented. You know, I was exemplifying that Olympic ideal, that Olympic spirit, and people loved me for it, and it was lovely.
I mean, you must have had a few accidents doing that. I mean, you don't just do that once and then, I'm fine, I'll just get up and do it again. I mean, give me a rundown of your worst one.
My worst accidents for ski jumping, I fractured my skull twice. I broke my jaw, smashed my collarbone in 5 places, broke 3 ribs, damaged my kidney, damaged my knee. But my worst accident was a broken neck and back when I was about 18. I was ski racing in Italy, and I collided with a guy, and I hit a tree and broke my neck and back. But lucky enough, I didn't damage my spinal cord, and I survived and lived to fight another day.
I always find it interesting when people say they broke their back but they didn't damage their spinal cord. How does that work?
Yes, I fractured 4 vertebrae, 2 in my neck and 2 in my back, and I was very lucky. They had to cut the cat suit off me, which I just bought. It cost me £200, and they had to cut it out.
I think that's the least of your worries.
Yeah, and I was put in traction, and it took me about 5 months to recover fully.
Really?
But I was back skiing after about a month, but I had a neck brace, and I was sort of very gingerly skiing on the nursery slopes and the blue runs, and then I finally got back to full fitness and carried on. But it never put me off.
No.
You know, I just learnt from my mistakes, and even now, because I collided with somebody, I'm very conscious when I'm skiing of people around me. So, and I do get nervous, and the faster I go, the more space I want, and I try and look for spaces so that I try not to go too close to other skiers when I'm skiing down the mountain.
I find it interesting when people say, I'm going skiing and on a holiday. I'm like, you're going on a holiday where you could sort of kill yourself? And I don't think so. That's not a holiday. For me, I'm going to lie there, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to play chess in the sand, and maybe swim a little bit in a pool where I can touch my feet on the bottom, that sort of thing.
No, for me, I love a ski trip, you know, go out, the mountains, the fresh air, the exercise, the après-ski, the saunas. I love it all.
Now, there's been a film about you, hasn't there? Talk to me about that.
Yes, it was released in 2016, but I signed the deal to make the movie 23 years ago. And I was very excited back then. Originally, I think Robbie Williams was going to play me in the original film.
Really? But, that's a bit of. I mean, not that you're very handsome, Eddie, but that's like Naomi Campbell playing me, isn't it? Who's going to play Nana Akua? Naomi Campbell. Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
I can see the resemblance.
Well, we're both black. Yeah, that's about it, really.
They had loads of people, and the project just kept stalling. And then I won a TV show called Splash about 6 or 7 years ago. And from that, they then made the film, and I was very impressed. Taron, I couldn't believe how much Taron Egerton looked and sounded and acted just like I was 34 years ago. And they did a wonderful job. I've seen the film like 130 times.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. It still makes me cry when I watch it.
Oh, really? What, is that a good tears?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They did a great job. They really captured the heart and spirit and essence of my story. It was really well done. There's just the right amount of humour and drama, and they really captured my story very, very well.
What would you say is the most poignant sort of moment then in your life that has been captured in this film? Some people won't have seen the film.
Well, obviously going to the Olympic Games, and they really captured it in such a nice way, because for me, getting to those Olympic Games, I knew that I was going to come last. I came 58th, but that didn't matter. They really showed the fact that for me, getting there was my gold medal, and despite all the hardships, in fact, my life was much harder than even the film portrayed.
Right.
You know, I slept in the back of my car, I scraped food out of bins, I slept in a psychiatric hospital in Finland, all these sort of things which they didn't put in the film. So there was so much more that they could have put in, but what they did use, they did really well anyway. But yeah, I love the film. Really.
Wow.
And I'm very busy off the back of the film. I'm talking about my life all over the world at conferences, and I talk about resilience and tenacity and never giving up. And I talk to kids and at conferences and all that kind of thing. So off the back of the film, it's been fantastic.
Well, off the back of your efforts as well and your hard work.
Well, that's true.
And sheer determination and bravery for doing that. What are you thinking then as you're doing the ski jump, as you're coming off the end there? What's going through your head?
Well, it used to be, I was really scared of the height, the speed. I was wondering where the nearest hospital was. I was wondering how many bones I was going to break. You know, the nurse is nice. But then as I got better and better at ski jumping and became a little bit safer, it was just technique. I listened to what my coach was telling me, and I knew that if I did that to the letter, I knew that I would be safe. So all I was thinking about when I was coming down the jump was my balance, my position, making sure that I can go forwards at the takeoff, because if I could go forwards, I was safe. And just working on certain things to make me safe. First and foremost, I wanted to be safe. Then I wanted to jump further than I've ever jumped before.
Yeah.
So I was always constantly pushing the boundaries, but I still wanted to be safe as well.
It's interesting because as a gymnast, so I used to do backflips and somersaults. I still do them every now and again. I never really thought about the danger until I got a little bit older. As your time progressed doing this jumping, did you start to get the fear? Do you have the fear?
Well, I always had fear. Always had fear. From the very first jump to the very last jump, I was always fearful. But I used that fearfulness in a positive way. It made me focus. It made me concentrate, because I didn't want to hurt myself. I certainly didn't want to kill myself. So I just used it in a positive way by focusing really hard on what I needed to do to make sure I was safe. And I relied on that. And yes, occasionally I made a mistake and hurt myself, but that didn't put me off. I made sure I never made the same mistake again, and I carried on, and that was the most important thing. Just get up. No matter how many times you hurt yourself and you get hit, you've got to get up and you've got to keep going.
And I'm presuming the most dangerous part of that jump is the landing, is it?
Well, it helps if you land the right way out, land on your feet rather than your head. And you've got to land on your skis as well. And sometimes the landing hill was very icy, so as soon as your skis land, they would sometimes, move around all the time. But yeah, you've got to time the landing just right, because if you come out of your position too early, your ski can actually flip you over, and you could land on your back. So you've got to time it just right. And sometimes they leave it too late, and then they fall flat on their face. So you just get used to the fact that when you're about 2 foot off the ground, then start lifting your head, your body will follow, and then hopefully, boom, you land on your feet.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when people go skiing, and I have been snowboarding only once, you forget that you're actually at a height, and it's height, and you're coming down the mountain. If that was a mountain exposed, you wouldn't climb it. You wouldn't jump off it either.
And some people are scared just going up the lift, let alone skiing down.
I have a fear of heights, but I was able to climb a mountain and go skiing or snowboarding or whatever it was. It's just interesting.
Fantastic.
So since all of that, because you sort of disappeared, the rules changed so you couldn't compete.
Yep.
Then, of course, you've had the film out and things like that. What else have you been doing?
Well, after Calgary, because I became Eddie the Eagle and they wouldn't let me carry on ski jumping, I just threw myself into the media side, the celebrity side. I was travelling all over the world, opening shopping centres, golf courses, fun rides, having a whale of a time, doing loads of TV shows and radio shows, earning lots of money. I went from a plasterer, earning about £7,000 a year, and then a week later, I was earning £20,000 an hour to open a fun ride or open a hotel. And I thought, wow, loads of money. And I was putting the money away into a trust. My trustees allegedly looked after it quite badly, and I went into voluntary bankruptcy. But that sowed the seed then to become a lawyer. And when I retired from ski jumping, I went back to school and studied and did a law degree. Loved doing law.
Yes.
Loved studying. Unfortunately, at that time, to do my legal practice course to become a lawyer was like £20,000. No guarantee of a job at the end of it. So I went back to plastering.
Plastering's pretty well paid, to be fair.
Well, it is now. It is
it's
well
a
now.
pretty good job.
And, but my plastering was always my plan B, and I always had that to fall fall back on. So it gave me the confidence to go off and do all these things, knowing that if they failed, I always had my plastering to fall back on. And it was really nice to have that blanket, that comfort that I've got something I can always do work, I can always pay the bills. And
do you still do plastering?
I still plaster now. Some of my friends are builders and kitchen fitters, so they sometimes give me a ring and say, could you come and do some work for us? So I get my trowel out and off I go. So yeah, I still do a bit of plastering.
I was going to say plasters are a good one. It's pretty difficult to get hold of, to be fair. Very good skill.
And it's a good skill to have, very good skill. It keeps me grounded, it keeps me fit. And I like to help my mates out every once. So friends and family, I'll still do my plastering for. So
that's good. I've got some stuff you can plaster probably with you.
I'll come round and have a look.
For sure. And but finally, I just want to talk about the Paralympics and also the Beijing Olympics. What's your view on that? Because of all these things going on in the world and everything, you know, some of the athletes, Russian athletes, have been not allowed to compete and things. Where do you stand with that?
Well, it's hard. I thought Beijing had a wonderful Olympics. They would always host a great Olympics. But they had lots of issues there with the COVID, you know, people weren't allowed. So, yeah, I felt sorry for the athletes because they were competing in empty stadiums. And that was such a, you know, when I went to Calgary jumping, there was 82,000 people in the stadium and they were shouting and cheering and it was a wonderful atmosphere. You know, jumping in Beijing, it was just, you know, you could hear people and people, you know, there was nobody there. It must have been really strange. I did agree with countries where they didn't send their officials because they wanted to sort of demonstrate their annoyance at, you know, human rights things with China, which was fair enough. But I think the athletes should still be allowed to go and compete and try wherever possible to try and keep politics out of sport. I know it's really, really hard and sport is political. I think the Russian figure skater, you know, just dominated all the news at Beijing, unfortunately, and rightly so. But I thought the authorities made some terrible decisions allowing her to compete, even though she was found guilty of drugs. I know she was 15, but
still, the rules are the rules.
That's right. And they almost sanctioned cheating, and I think that was wrong.
If you're 15.
Yeah, 15. I can see. Well, it was all, you know. It was her team around her that were doing all the string pulling. But at the same time, they should have made an example and said, no, rules are rules. That's it. You're out.
Well, listen, Eddie, we're running out of time. So if people want to find out more, are you up to something that people can check you out on, or is it just mainly your films out there and just?
Yeah, well, I'm still busy travelling all over the world doing talks. I've got a talk coming up in Chichester next week, which is a sort of an event where people can buy tickets to come along and listen to me. So I do events all over the world now, and yeah, I'm still keeping busy. The odd TV thing every once in a while, but enjoying life, I would say. Enjoying very much.
Well, listen, on that note, we must end. Thank you so much. And it's so wonderful to finally meet you. I never thought that guy jumping off that slope that I thought was completely mad, I'd get to meet and speak to. So thank you very much.
I look forward to coming snowboarding with you.
Oh, my God. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you, Eddie the Eagle. Thank you so much for joining me. That is Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the legend that is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's, of course, Eddie the Eagle. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? That was Outside. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. So much still to come. We've got our great British debate this hour, and with lots of countries across the globe getting tough with Russia, I'm asking, should there be sports boycotts on Saudi and Qatar too? First, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry for many, but there'll be some showers here and there. Let's take a look at the details. Heavy showers from the afternoon will ease in southwest England, leaving a largely dry picture and clear skies. A few mist and fog patches may form later in the evening. Skies will be cloudier in parts of the southeast with a few outbreaks of rain in the east. This rain will gradually clear through the night. Showers will begin to ease across Wales this evening. A few mist patches are possible under clear spells. It will turn chilly tonight with a rural frost too. Clearer skies will form across the Midlands. Fog patches will also form in some prone spots, particularly in the countryside. It'll be a dry evening across northern England. Strong winds will begin to ease, allowing temperatures to fall away. A cloudier picture across Scotland with a few showers remaining this evening. After a windy day, winds will gradually ease a little bit overnight and it should turn largely dry later. However, it will stay windy across Northern Ireland, with showers still spreading into western areas overnight. Showers will be heavy at times, perhaps with the odd rumble of thunder as well. Tomorrow, most places will stay dry overnight with clear skies. This will give a patchy frost in the southwestern parts of Scotland, and that's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Twenty-six minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it is time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should there be sports boycotts on Saudi and Qatar too? The UK governments have been tough on Russian-owned businesses and sports with links to the Kremlin, notably stopping Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich from selling the club. But teams are still competing in this year's Winter World Cup in Qatar, and that is despite the fact that abuse of migrant workers in the country is well documented, and Saudi Arabia executed 81 men in the biggest mass execution in modern history yesterday. They're also at war with rebels in Yemen and are accused of starving civilians there. Despite this, the Saudi state effectively owns Newcastle Football Club as well. They're obviously playing against Chelsea, so the irony is all too obvious. So is it fair that we should also boycott them too? Well, I'm joined now by sports writer and broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, thank you very much for joining me. It's really good to talk to you. So what is it that Qatar are accused of? I mean, obviously there's a lot of detail about refugees and slavery and all that sort of thing, but what specifically?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a story. I was actually in Qatar in 2010. I was writing Sam Allardyce's column for the News of the World in those days, and I was sent over there for a week. And my boss at the News of the World said, "Listen, I'm not having you over there for a week in the Ritz-Carlton writing this column unless you do something else with it. You know, otherwise it's a bit of a jolly." Yeah. So I said, "Go down to the local organising committee where the Qatar World Cup bid is being held, and find out what they've got for you in terms of pictures and tell us what kind of World Cup they're going to have." So I went there. They glossed over some of the abuses that kind of people knew about. It wasn't just Qatar at the time either. It was the other Emirates states as well. The accusation being they were importing migrant workers from Pakistan and they were putting them on high scaffolding, not taking due consideration over their safety and welfare, they were sometimes dropping into the sea and no one was even caring. You know, it was that brutal. But they gave me these pictures of what these futuristic stadia were going to look like. And they actually said to me, Leighton, we're just here to familiarise ourselves with the process. They honestly believe, and I believe this, they honestly believe that this was for 10, 12, 14 years down the line. They had no chance of winning it. They were never going to get that World Cup. 6 months later, I'm back in England and they get awarded the World Cup. That would not have happened without some subversion along the line. And that's because FIFA put the World Cup in that place and well, I say made, it's not happened yet, but there's pressure on players now to boycott it. I don't think that decision should be in the hands of players. It should be in the hands of the organisations who make that decision. The other thing about it, Nana, is that when Sepp Blatter and his cohorts made that decision in 2010, or with whatever happened, whatever went on behind the scenes, they knew that they wouldn't be able to pay for it or be accountable for it for another 12 years. They're not thinking short-term, even medium-term, it's long-term. It's take the money and then run, and that's exactly what they did.
So, in your view, because I know you just said that actually it should be in the hands of people like FIFA to boycott it, though.
Yeah.
But do you think that perhaps some of the sports players as well should consider that? And people like the BBC who are going there to broadcast there, I mean, they're a state-owned broadcaster, and ultimately we are paying for it. And there's the likes of Gary Lineker being paid 1.3 million out of that, but we won't get into that one.
It was more than that, isn't it? I thought 1.8.
Well, I think it's 1.3 as for the latest reports. Right. And he was questioned about it and said, well, he has to go because it's the BBC and they're going, and so he's going. I mean, it's just...
It is, but what about the players as well? I mean, you could say, but again, though, it's the players who are being put in this invidious position in some ways because they're the look at the whole furore about taking the knee. It's the players who suffer on the pitch. They're the ones who get the abuse, either whether they take it or whether they don't. So it's down to the organisation. Should the BBC not go? I think there's a case for them staying back. Yeah, there would be. It would make a hell of a stand if they did. But realistically, it's never going to happen.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Where do we go with this then? If big organisations, state-owned organisations, won't do it, then there's very little chance that other organisations will do this. But if we take into account Ukraine and also what's going on and the fact that all these big companies like Visa are boycotting these countries and saying, look, we're not going to trade there, is it time that sport started to be a bit braver and followed suit?
Well, yeah, sport could be braver, but what will force their hand is things you're describing, big companies, blue-chip companies like Visa, pulling out. The idea is that the football was meant to go, and other sports are meant to go as far wide around the world. But it's a big world. There's 100 or 200 something countries. There are lots of other places they could have taken. It didn't have to go to Russia. It didn't have to go to the World Cup. Doesn't have to go to one of the Gulf states. But it has already gone there, and it's gone there for one reason only, and that's money. And so I think this decision should be taken much sooner. This decision not to go to Qatar should have been taken in 2010. And that's when, because we know the skullduggery went on, we're all kind of familiar with what happened, and we're paying for it now. And it's the generation of players after those who made that decision who are going to bear the brunt of this, because they're not going to like this. It's also disrupting the season as well. It's caused absolute chaos. That's another reason the clubs don't like it.
But now we know about it, though, and I hear what you're saying, that we should have really preempted it and they shouldn't have even got on the list to be part of it. That's absolutely right. But now we're there, and we have decided to take a stand against, obviously, Russia for their disgusting behaviour in Ukraine, which is completely unforgivable and unacceptable. Absolutely right. I mean, 3 have pulled their sponsorship from Chelsea because they're not happy with it.
Yeah.
So
they're on Chelsea's shirt today.
Well, I mean, you know, but they have, but they have,
could be more to come as well.
But they have pulled their sponsorship already, so that's already big business making a point here. Yes. So where are these organisations? Why is FIFA, UEFA, and all these organisations not doing something? And also, if the players refuse to play, then that might send a...
Well, it would send a huge message. I don't think the players are going to do that, but they're going to face a lot of accusations of hypocrisy, given some of the virtual signalling the England team got involved with at the rearranged Euros last summer. They've been very, very quiet on... Well, they said a few months ago they're going to sit down and have a discussion with the organisers of the Qatar World Cup and the FA to see if they can do anything to take a stand. But ultimately, they're going to be on that pitch and they're going to be competing. That's going to happen. If, as you say, these big companies pull out, then I think that would have happened already, to be honest with you. We've known there's going to be a World Cup in Qatar for the last 12 years. So I think that would have happened. If it does happen, then they've got a decision to make. But again, it'll be money dictating, as it always does.
And very briefly, because we've got about a minute left, why is it that Abramovich is not allowed to own Chelsea, yet, of course, we've got the Saudi state that can own Newcastle?
That's $1 million question. That's one you'd have to ask the Premier League, because they made their bed. They're the ones who got involved with politics. I've always said that politics and sport is inextricably linked, but sport doesn't help itself, particularly the Premier League. They're the ones who invite fraternisation with Black Lives Matter, with climate change, with rainbow laces, with all manner of other political causes. you should try and keep it out of there, out of that sphere as much as you possibly can. But they're not doing that. And by doing that, you make your bed when the Saudi train comes over the hill and tries to buy Newcastle United and succeeds in doing so with their record on human rights, particularly against the LGBTQ plus community. It's a juxtaposition they're going to have to deal with now. And it's in the room. And they played Chelsea today and it was crystallised on the pitch there. And everyone's talking about it. And there's going to be decisions to be made in future. It's going to make them embarrassing. How can they go back there to St James's Park with the Rainbow Laces campaign in the face of what's going on there and who their owners are? It's going to be very difficult for them.
Yeah, it's difficult. And actually, even for us as people buying our iPhones and our this and our that, we also have to start to take a look at our consciences as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You'll be here a long time, though.
Well, you know, Aidan, it's really good to talk to you.
You
Thank
too.
you so much. That's Aidan McGee. Well, he's a sports writer and a broadcaster. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Dave says, yes, without a doubt, the World Cup should never, ever have been awarded to Qatar. Yanis says, absolutely, sport is a good way to send a clear message to the world about what's right and what's wrong. Tammy says that the cost of living is going up and there's a terrible war, so maybe give people something to look forward to. Cancelling football, which billions of people across the world love, will just make them more miserable. You do have a point there, but it can't be much fun in a war either. Listen, thank you for your views. Keep them coming. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue with our Great British debate. I'm asking, should there be sports boycotts on Saudi and Qatar as well? You'll hear the thoughts on my panel, Daily Mail's Andrew Pearce and broadcaster Danny Kelly. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's 5:34. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. A Russian airstrike has hit a large Ukrainian military base close to Poland, killing at least 35 people and wounding 134 in what appears to be the most westerly attack so far. Russia has admitted to carrying out the attack less than 15 miles from the Polish border. They claim to have killed up to 180 foreign mercenaries and destroyed a large amount of weapons supplied by outside nations. The Pope has issued his strongest condemnation yet of the invasion of Ukraine, saying the unacceptable armed aggression must stop. Speaking to thousands of people in St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis also said the killing of children and unarmed civilians was barbaric. A Russian delegate involved in peace talks with Ukrainian officials says significant progress has been made in the latest round of discussions, and it was possible both sides could soon reach a joint position. A member of the Ukrainian delegation also believes there could be results in the coming days. It's not known what any agreement might include, but Ukraine has said while it's willing to negotiate, it won't surrender or accept ultimatums. It's believed 125,000 people have now been evacuated via humanitarian corridors from conflict zones around Ukraine. That's according to Volodymyr Zelensky speaking in his latest video address. The Ukrainian president stressed the key task is still Mariupol, where 400,000 people remain trapped. A convoy bringing food and medical supplies is now said to be 50 miles away from the besieged port city. On TV, online and DAB plus radio. This is GB News. Straight back to Nana Akua after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio, and it's back to our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should there be sports boycotts on Saudi and Qatar as well? Now, the UK government's been tough on Russian-owned businesses and sports with links to the Kremlin, notably stopping Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich from selling the club. But the England team are still competing in this year's Winter World Cup in Qatar. I mean, that's despite the fact that the abuse of migrant workers in the country is well documented. I mean, you only need to go onto Amnesty International's website to find the top sort of 8 abuses that are there. There's also Saudi Arabia, which is a strong ally of the UK and the military, when it executed 81 men yesterday with human rights organisations saying that many didn't receive fair trials. And it's at war in Yemen, and it is accused of starving civilians there. So should we boycott them too if we do that, though? I mean, we could start looking at ourselves and see what is actually left. Let's see what my panellists think of that. We've got Andrew Pearce and also Danny Kelly.
Sorry, I was choking.
Yes,
my tea went down the wrong hole.
I thought it was something I'd said. I said, this is something I said.
And Danny sympathetically laughed instead of whacking me.
That's what he does all the time.
I can't wait to tell my wife I've been coughed over by Andrew Pearce. Because she loves you.
Oh, does she?
She loves you. And she loves Nana. She was thrilled when she discovered that you were...
Well, tell her I'm healthy. I had my last COVID jab 2 days ago, so you're all right.
Oh, did you? Yeah, you went through that, yeah.
Now, can I say I'm going to boycott the World Cup because I can't stand football. It's boring. It's the most boring sport on the planet. So that would be my personal boycott. I won't watch a bit of it.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that.
I think Andrew needs to qualify that because he's a fan of Swindon Town.
Somebody has to be. Somebody has to be. We don't have many fans, it's true.
Yeah.
We get about 9,000 at a home game, which is quite good for a Division 2 team. But I'm not a football fan. But look, I get uneasy about all this because, I mean, why did Qatar ever get the World Cup in the first place? Because it's got no footballing pedigree or history. It's a desert kingdom. They're going to have to play the matches at ungodly hours early because of the heat. So I think it was all down to FIFA being a rotten organisation. But I'm less concerned about Saudi Arabia. They're a really important trading ally of Britain. They've been supporters of ours for years. Yes, they've still got the death penalty, but lots of countries have the death penalty. We're great allies of America. You can get the death penalty in lots of states in America. So what's the big deal?
Oh, well, I'm not opposed to the death penalty anyway. I think that we should have it in this country, and I don't see
most
why...
people viewing it,
I don't see why we
agree with you.
That's perfectly reasonable.
Would the difference potentially be the fact that they follow strict Sharia law? So you could be executed for being gay, maybe?
Yeah, well, that would be me then. I'd have my head chopped off.
But you wouldn't in America?
No, of course. But look, we do business with lots of countries that have unsavoury records on human rights. China, we're still giving international aid to China. Look what they're doing to the Uyghur Muslims.
Well, yeah.
So we do business with trade. We give aid to Pakistan. They've got a pretty dodgy record too. So we can't be too sniffy about this, actually.
It's pure hypocrisy.
The world isn't pure, and we've got to do business with these people. And Saudi Arabia is worth a lot of money to the economy PLC.
Yeah, we have to pinch our noses sometimes.
We do.
Do you think that this is sort of slightly reminiscent to removing links to slavery and things like that, where we end up in a sort of whirlwind of hypocrisy? Because, as you said, you're already pointing out other people. I mean, China, we do huge amounts of business with them, and yet the behaviour, the way they've treated the Uyghur Muslims, if we're going to start down that track, is this a sort of rolling...
Most weekends when people go to the shop and buy a T-shirt, you'll find it's from China. I have now my own little personal boycott of Chinese goods. I always check, and quite often they put RC, Republic of China, because they're aware of how toxic they are as a country. But That's my little protest, but I think we just have to accept that a lot of countries we do business with are dubious.
What about, though, if we look at, obviously, Vladimir Putin's disgusting war, and then we see that companies are pulling out of that because they're absolutely disgusted by it, which everybody is. Most people are anyway, most decent, respectful people are. But then we see things like Qatar, which we know about it, but that there's a big event happening there, and then we know about Saudi Arabia as well. And although we have to sort of think about these things, are they the same? Can we relate those?
I don't think
they are. I think when you have an invasion, when you see a country with 300,000 troops crossing a line, tanks rolling towards the city of Kiev, I think they're incomparable. I don't think you can compare a war to, and it may sound harsh, to the treatment of a group of people in China. I don't think you can.
No, I'm afraid I agree with that. This is an illegal war. There are war crimes being carried out every single day. They're bombing civilians, safe passages for civilians to be evacuated. They're bombing them routinely. It's a wicked, evil war, and Putin is an evil man. I don't think he's mad, he's evil, and he will be tried for war crimes eventually, unless an assassin's bullet gets him first, which would be preferable.
Yes, how will they get him, though, in order to send him to the Hague?
I guess if he sets foot outside Russia.
Yeah, which he probably never will.
Maybe so. But it's not just Putin. It'll be his cronies around him too, his generals who are enforcing this war, and also I think some of those Russian deputies in that parliament who voted for this conflict to take place.
It's just utter madness.
Andrew, you mentioned an assassin's bullet.
Yeah.
It's peculiar that the mood has changed, because a couple of weeks ago I mentioned it, and quite understandably people said you can't say that, but now it's become more popular to say that.
Yeah.
Well, yes. What I'm saying is but that's not to say that anyone didn't think that. I mean, we all probably thought that. But the point is that on TV and on radio, you cannot initiate that, and you know, you can't incite that on TV or radio.
It's becoming more every day, though.
Yeah, but you still can't do it.
The reason people talk about it is because this is Putin's war. You see that great thuggish foreign minister, his name escapes me.
It's disgusting.
It doesn't matter what he says. Putin calls all the shots.
Sergei Lavrov.
Lavrov, the brute. It's Putin's war, and if he was removed from the equation, the war might end.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm just going to go off on a tangent. I don't know if you've ever been to Turkey and shared a hotel with Russians, and they've been infamously very hostile and rude. And now I understand, because they are indoctrinated to actually fear the West. Indeed, they see us as enemies. And now, I've always thought, why are Russians so rude on holiday? And now I understand why.
Well, I had a very similar experience. Although I appreciate that might be a general thing that you've heard, I think it's a little bit unfair to label all the Russians with the same brush. I'm just saying... No,
I understand.
Yeah, I've thought about it, and I'm thinking about it. I'm telling you that I think you can't tar people with the same brush.
Yeah, exactly, and it's why when people go about, the Tories took money from Russians, not all Russian businessmen and women are KGB stooges or crooks.
That's right.
There are decent, honourable Russians in this country who are British citizens who are legally able to give money to the Tories. Now, it doesn't look great, I admit, but you can't assume they're all bad, because they're not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're all bad.
And maybe it's the people that you came across. Maybe they saw the sight of you and thought, we don't like you. Maybe it's you. Maybe something you did.
And we shouldn't forget that football club owner, Abramovich. It was Blair's government that allowed him to buy that football club. Why did they allow it in the first place? Because he's turned football into an arms race.
And as Aidan said as well, I mean, the fact that we even allowed, or Qatar went into the process of being able to actually vie for hosting it is part of the problem, really, anyway. Well, let's see what you guys are thinking, because this show is nothing without you. We've been talking whether should there be a sports boycott on places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar as well. Lots of you have been sending me your views. Oliver says that we should not allow so much foreign investment, but we do. A lot of London is owned by people who don't live in the UK, and I don't think that that's right. Timothy says, well, no sport should go beyond politics. No sport should go beyond politics. Steve says, yes, let's move the World Cup now, whilst we still have time to change things around and get another country ready to host the World Cup. Wanda says, no, football's the beautiful game. Don't stop us watching it. Well, you can watch it, but it might not be in Qatar. That's what we're saying. I mean, that's a pretty good point. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, a lot of you on that one. I do think that football should not be spared in terms of, you know, looking at morals and values. We should perhaps put some of those into practice. Now it's time, though, for Bookmark. It's my part of the show where we talk to authors of some of the best new books making their ways onto the shelves. And this week, it's a new title all about Russia. Professor Taras Kuzio is an associate fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, and his new book is titled Russian disinformation and Western scholarship. So Professor Taras Kuzio joins me live now from Holland. Professor, thank you so much for joining me. The book sounds intriguing. Can you start by giving me an overview on what it's all about?
Well, I've been following how quite a few Western academics are the Kremlin's useful idiots. I mean, they've been, and this is primarily on the far left, so the Jeremy Corbyn far left, but you also get them on the far right, of course, as well. But academics tend to be more on the left. And they've been parroting the Kremlin line on all sorts of issues, going back to it's all the West's fault for the crisis in Ukraine in 2014. I'm sure they're saying the same thing now with the Russian invasion. Many of them supported Russia's annexation of Crimea. You get a lot of that within, for example, Western historians of Russia. They kind of make the argument that Crimea was always Russian. What's the big deal that it was taken back by Russia in 2014? And it's kind of this weird situation where they are, I'm sure they believe they're on the left, but they're actually, their views about Ukraine are quite racist, quite colonialist, and they are basically just parroting the Kremlin's line on the Russian nationalist line that Ukraine and Ukrainians don't exist. But they would never admit that. And many of those people involved in that whole disinformation in British academia and I think to some degree in journalism have blood on their hands. I mean, they are people who promoted and disseminated the Kremlin line in the last 8 years. And they have never been really, as it were, pulled up about it until people like myself do it.
So your books then, and your motivation obviously was trying to expose these people and without giving all of it away type thing. So where does it go with this? Is it a story or is it just simply a documentation of how this misinformation is allowed to happen?
Well, I published a book already about 2 years ago, in 2020, called Crisis in Russian Studies, where I go into how Western and particularly British academics who write about Russia, who write about Russian history, are really parroting a very nationalist line, which is now used by Putin, of course, as his excuse to invade Ukraine, because Putin's line, the Kremlin line, is that there is no Ukraine, there is no Ukrainian people. This is a Russian land, which is in dire need of liberating from these horrible American puppets that are running it at the moment. And that's the Kremlin line. And of course, if you're on the Jeremy Corbyn left of politics, you believe that because your anti-Americanism makes you pro-Kremlin. And surprise, surprise, you do get these people with these kind of views in academia, not just British academia, in American as well. And my approach is to analyze what they write, show them to be Kremlin useful idiots, and to expose them, basically, name and shame them.
Listen, it's really good to talk to you, Professor Taras. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Professor Taras Kuzio. He's the author of Russian Disinformation and Western Scholarship and Associate. He's also an Associate Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Really good to talk to you. He's there all the way from Holland. Thank you so much. Right, well, that's what he was saying. Very interesting stuff from our professor. Right, so now it's time for Supplement Sunday, where we discuss some of the day's other stories that my panel have found. I'm with Danny Kelly and also Andrew Pearce. So, Danny, you've got the first one. What's your one?
And it's from Andrew's fabulous paper, although Mail on Sunday, your Daily Mail?
So your sister paper.
Sister paper.
Yeah, we're brothers and sisters.
My Ferrari can't go through here at all. Sir Rod Stewart, 77, ditches his microphone for a spade as he fills potholes near his Essex home because no one could be bothered to do it. Now, I'm guessing, do you live in the capital, Andrew?
I do.
I bet you don't have a car.
No.
OK.
Haven't had a car for over 30 years.
Really?
I use the tube.
Yeah, OK.
Bus, walk.
I've driven down from the Midlands today to do this, and there are potholes everywhere, and it's the bane of a motorist's life. Now, the council will say, if you damage your wheel or you bust a tyre through a pothole, the council will say, we won't pay towards it because we weren't aware it was there. Now, it just goes to show how standards have slipped because Rod Stewart is having to repair. There's no way his local council don't know about these potholes.
Well, they do now, if they don't.
And they do now. And they're the bane of our lives, motorist lives.
Would you repair a pothole would you repair it like Rod?
Well, if it was damaging...
I don't suppose he's repaired it. I imagine
He has. There, look at the picture. There he is in person.
There he is in a high-vis jacket.
No, he's doing it himself.
Good on him.
Yeah.
He's got good PRs.
Isn't he good?
Very good PR.
He's going to release a song now, Pothole, the pothole of my life.
If I repaired a pothole, I'd make it worse. I'm not very practical or technical, and nobody asked me about a story, so I haven't got one.
Well, this one here is Michael Gove, actually. Now, he said that he wants to use the seized homes of Russian oligarchs to house refugees, and at the moment, some of the billionaires aren't even allowed to let cleaners into their houses. Oh, diddums. So is it right that we give these properties over to refugees? Andrew, I'll ask you.
Well, I suggested this on LBC a few weeks ago. Michael Gove does listen to LBC, so maybe he's borrowed my idea. Yes. You may have been there first. The other thing we could do, if we don't put refugees in there, is rent them out at vast amounts of money and use the money from the rent to go to a charity to help Ukrainian people. Either or is a good thing. But it would stick in the craw of the oligarchs if Ukrainian refugees were living in their luxury houses. So I'd probably go for that option.
I think I heard you on LBC. A caller suggested that because the Queen no longer lives in Buckingham Palace, lives in Windsor, and there's 450
There
rooms.
are. I know. And she's not there at the moment, so she might not mind, Her Majesty. Yeah. Well, the decor's a bit naff.
It is a bit, yeah. It is a bit naff and it's flaking, isn't it? But finally, I've got to tell you about this one, which is again in the Mirror. A woman said that her smell at a pheromone party bagged her husband. Interesting. The party involved a man sniffing 50 tops from different women and then choosing who he wanted to go on a date with based on their scent. So do you think that's a good way to find a partner, Dan?
No.
It's horrible.
Do you not think?
Andrew's smelling sweet.
Thank you very much.
I think it's a good way. I mean, if they stink or it doesn't quite work...
What is pheromone?
It's pheromone.
Should I know what pheromone is?
Well, it's like the sort of sexual hormone that arouses people, the smell that
you probably should know. Have a word with your wife.
Which garments are you supposed to be sniffing in order to...
This is where are we going to go with this conversation, you know?
Seriously, where are you...
Typical of you to take it down that...
But what sort of party is it where you go to party and you
You're just saying the same thing.
Tops? It is a very strange party. I've never been invited to one like that. I've been to some peculiar parties in my time, but I won't talk about them here.
Well, we can't sadly say them on air, sadly. I'd love to hear all your...
It was a long time ago.
Was it now? Well, listen, on today's show we've been asking, is £350 per month enough to house a Ukrainian refugee? And according to our Twitter poll, take a guess, how many do you think? 29% of you said yes. Well, they got more generous as the show went on. 71% of you say no, it's not enough. Well, I've got to say it's been a pleasure as ever to have your company this afternoon. I've got to say thank you so much to my panel. Broadcaster Danny Kelly, thank you very much. Are you coming back next week?
Of course.
That's great. And hopefully Andrew Pearce, you will come back.
Love to come and see you again, yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Andrew Pearce as well on the panel. Well, listen, as ever, thank you so much for your company. I'll see you same time, same place at Friday on 4 next week. I'll leave you with the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry for many, but there'll be some showers here and there. Let's take a look at the details. Heavy showers from the afternoon will ease in southwest England, leaving a largely dry picture and clear skies. A few mist and fog patches may form later in the evening. Skies will be cloudier in parts of the southeast with a few outbreaks of rain in the east. This rain will gradually clear through the night. Showers will begin to ease across Wales this evening. A few mist patches are possible under clear spells. It will turn chilly tonight with a rural frost too. Clearer skies will form across the Midlands. Fog patches will also form in some prone spots, particularly in the countryside. It'll be a dry evening across northern England. Strong winds will begin to ease, allowing temperatures to fall away. A cloudier picture across Scotland with a few showers remaining this evening. After a windy day, winds will gradually ease a little bit overnight and it should turn largely dry later. However, it will stay windy across Northern Ireland, with showers still spreading into western areas overnight. Showers will be heavy at times, perhaps with the odd rumble of thunder as well. Tomorrow, most places will stay dry overnight with clear skies. This will give a patchy frost in the southwest and parts of Scotland, and that's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly